Hello, Gooses from around the world. My name is Kais, and I'm 12 years old, and I live in Montreal, Canada. Welcome to our Oboot Zoom session, where me and my co-host Maya, who is also 12 years old from Montreal, will be interviewing our guest changemaker, Leena Al Olaimy. Leena is from Manama in Bahrain. She is a sustainability leader who recently founded the Trillion Tree Fund, a social venture that uses artificial intelligence to finance mangrove and forest restoration. Leena's work links to several sustainable development goals, especially to goal number 13, climate action, and goal 15, life on land. Maya and I will ask questions to Leena about her background, her journey, her work, her skills, and her impact. We hope that you'll enjoy this session, and I will now start with our first question to our guest. Can you please tell us a little bit about you and what you do for your work?
So for the last 11 years, I've started 4 social enterprises. The Trillion Tree Fund is my 4th. Before that, I had a sustainability consultancy. And then I started a website that connects women and other groups that are not represented on board positions, because a lot of boards, like executive boards, the very top level of companies, are mostly men. So I started a platform that connects women and even youth to board positions. And then the 3rd social enterprise I started is basically a toolkit that helps humans and nature collaborate in win-win relationships. So not where humans are just taking from nature, but where they're also giving something back. So the Trillion Tree Fund is my 4th. And then my other, I guess, work that I've done that's significant is I wrote a book called Compassionate Counterterrorism. So
all right, Maya, you can ask your question now.
Okay. Like, is there anything you find like difficult about your job?
Yeah, I mean, there's always difficult things. It's challenging to be doing something that mostly isn't being done before. It's really challenging when you're trying to change systems or the way that people think about certain things. So challenging tradition is always difficult, but it's also a lot of fun and it's really rewarding. And I wake up every morning like I can't wait to get up and start working. So it's challenging, but I think it's worth it.
Okay, so you said that you founded the 1 Trillion Tree Fund. Why was the number a trillion out of all the numbers?
Good question.
Was there a reason?
There was a reason. So a few years ago, I read a study that basically there's enough space on Earth to restore 1.2 trillion trees. So these are all the trees that we've lost, like over time, degraded landscapes that could be restored. And the study actually found that if we did restore 1.2 trillion trees, we would cancel out 10 years of carbon emissions. So imagine we go back from today till you were 2 years old, and all the carbon emissions that the world has generated in those 10 years would be completely cancelled out. So that's why I went with one. I mean, it's called the Trillion Tree Fund, but the mission is to restore 1.2 trillion trees.
Like, when did you start wanting to help the environment by planting trees?
So I've been doing environmental work for the last 11 years. And I think I've always cared about the environment. So when I was, at school, I used to fundraise for things, like different wildlife and conservation funds. But I think my interest in restoring, or I don't personally plant trees, so my organization doesn't plant trees, but we're trying to push others to fund planting trees and restoring forests. And I guess it really started maybe 4 years ago that I had the idea, because I was just, you look at nature and it's so amazing and it gives us so much. It gives us, are you familiar with the term ecosystem services? Yeah, so the value of ecosystem services is double global stock markets. So all the money that everyone makes in business and finance in the world, the value of nature is at least double that every year, which is a lot. And it's so underappreciated. So the Trillion Tree Fund was really a way for me to start something that helped people really value nature and fund it.
All right, so was there an inspiration for your work?
For this venture or just in general?
Just in general.
I guess when I learned about social entrepreneurship, it wasn't that it was an inspiration, but I suddenly had a label of people that I could read about. I could read about other social enterprises. I'd never heard of the term before 2007 or 2006. And once I started reading about other social entrepreneurs, I was inspired by their stories. I was inspired by the types of organizations that they built, the way that they were trying to change the world. So all these change makers. And I realized that that was in my DNA. I just didn't know what it was called. And now I suddenly had, this tribe that I belong to and a lot of inspiration. So I guess that would maybe be the main inspiration that's kind of driven my work. And there was one man in particular. So he wrote a book called The Power of Unreasonable People. And it's all about change makers that have these totally crazy ideas to try and change the world. So that had a huge impact on me. And he's actually one of my advisors, which is pretty cool.
Okay, so what do you love most about your job?
I love so many things. I mean, I love that I'm so excited to work. I love that I'm doing something meaningful. I'm so grateful that when a lot of people really hate their jobs, I really can't relate. Like I work on the weekend. In fact, I have to like limit myself to not work as much and actually enjoy life. Thais, I think you remember when I stayed with you guys in Tunis, I was always in the room on the computer and I would never come out. So the other thing I really love about my work is I get to meet really cool people, so interesting people who are doing, really amazing things to change the world, and people who share my values. So people who connect with the work I do usually are people who also care about these issues. So I think that's probably the best part of my job.
Okay, so on your Trillion Tree Fund, you said that you use artificial intelligence to help secure people's portfolios and assets, right? How do you use artificial intelligence in that way?
So the platform we're building basically helps investors find the right forest investments that will protect their other assets, so their other buildings, their things that they've bought, whether it's a data center or a hotel or a bank, and it helps protect them from climate risks. So let me give you an example. Do you remember when you lived in Abu Dhabi, the mangroves? Did you ever see the mangroves when you were there?
I probably saw them, I just don't remember them.
Okay, so mangroves are basically these, trees, mangrove trees, and they grow in the water, like near the sea by the coastline. So they're actually in the water, and they can help protect coastlines and communities from flooding, from storm surges, from tsunamis. So imagine you're an investor and you own, let's say, a hotel that's on the coast, and there's a tsunami. And then you have all these millions of dollars in damages. By restoring mangroves or investing in them, you can actually protect not only your assets, but you also protect people, because a lot of people die, right, when there's like a natural disaster. So that's one example. So what we do, the platform we are building, helps match investors to the right forest restoration project that they should invest in based on what the assets are that they own, based on where those assets are located, based on what the climate risk is in that area. So maybe it's flooding, but maybe it's something else like sea level rise, maybe it's drought, maybe it's earthquakes. So that's part of the matching process. And then the other part that we do, that we use AI for, is then we want to predict what's the value. So if an investor makes that investment, how much money will they save? What would have been their cost of damages if they didn't make that investment? So we basically try and predict that number, you know, anywhere from now until 40 years in the future.
Like, is there any like memories you have like related to the Trillion Tree Fund that you will like never forget?
Well, I just started it this year, so it's very new. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. I'm trying to think of if there are any memories. I mean, I'm sure there'll be memories later that I'll never forget. But nothing in particular that sticks out. Just, yeah. I think maybe the one thing I'll remember of this really early stage of the journey is how much the work I'm doing has really like touched people. I've had a lot of people who've wanted to help and support. I've actually probably had in the last 4 months 55 different people who've just been wanting to help me for free. So I think I'll always remember how much support I've gotten for this particular social enterprise and like how much it's really connected with people.
Okay, so you said that your work is like really fun and you can't stop working. Why is it so fun, do you think?
I think it's all about you know, what drives you as a person. And I love learning, and I'm constantly learning new things. So especially with this, because I'm not an AI expert. I wasn't a forestry expert. I was a sustainable development expert, but I'm really learning a lot of different things. So that energizes me. It's fun for me. It's fun because I'm building something, and it's a little different from my other social enterprises. It's actually been really fun to build. Like, I'm building a platform. I'm not coding. I have, you know, developers who are working on that, but I think building something is always fun. Like, designing something and building it and seeing it come to life is super fun. And I've just been meeting really amazing people, you know, who've been wanting to work with me on this. So it's fun when you work with people who are like your friends. And I'd say it's also fun because, again, like I feel so grateful to be passionate about the work I'm doing when so many people hate their jobs. And it's fun to make a difference, right? Like, how good does it feel when you feel like you've done something to make a difference?
Like in the future, like when you've been doing the Trillion Tree Fund for a longer time, like what are you looking forward to the most?
I'm looking forward to, well, the day that we've restored 1.2 trillion trees, and the day that businesses and governments really value nature for what it's worth. And this is going to sound a little crazy, that I'm also looking forward to the day when, so I don't know if you guys know this, but in corporate law, like businesses, corporations, they're considered legal persons. Did you know that? Yeah, isn't that crazy that a company would be considered a legal person and it has, people rights, not exactly the same as human rights, but and that's because companies are representative of people, but then you have nature, which is an actual living, breathing, I mean, some people consider nature or species people too, and they don't have rights. And so I'm looking forward to the day when we can get governments and companies to really recognize nature and its rights.
Okay. So, normally, what does your workplace look like? Like, normally it's just like an office or what?
Oh, this is it. I mean, you're looking at it. My apartment is basically an office with a bedroom. Because I started the Trillion Tree Fund in January, so it's during the pandemic. So I've never had an office, and I don't know if we will. I don't know that we'll ever have an office. Going back to offices, and the people I've been working with are all over the place. I mean, most of my team. Actually, I'm trying to think. So out of the 55 people that I've had working with me, I have not met a single one of them in person before. And they're all in different countries. And that's crazy to think about, especially before COVID. But maybe if I were to have an office, maybe a tree house. Yeah.
So you said you wrote a book before, so are you gonna write another one?
Yeah, I think I'll eventually write another book. I don't know if it'll be so serious though. My other one was on terrorism, and I think I have a feeling if I write another book, it'll be a bit more personal. So just about my story, my journey, funny stories, challenges, like just more of the personal journey and not necessarily the intellectual work stuff. And plus, I really love to sing. And so with audiobooks, you can actually, so I want to integrate music somehow into my next book. If I end up doing that.
All right. So you said that you might write another book. So will you talk about this interview in your next book?
Most definitely. This will be one of my Trillion Tree Fund memories. So in the next interview, when they ask about my memories of the Trillion Tree Fund, Maya, I'll be saying, well, I remember this really cool interview I did.
Was there any memories from your childhood? You said about school, you made petitions and stuff, I'm pretty sure. So was there any times where it really went well, the petitions you made?
So it wasn't petitions, but it was just fundraising for wildlife. Yeah, so I don't think we had any petitions then.
All right. Well, I have one last question. So Maya, if you have another question, you can ask it. You don't have any questions? All right. So my last question is, do you have any advice for people who want to do work like yours?
So the best advice I ever got is just start and let the work teach you, because you can overthink it and think, how am I going to do this? And what if it doesn't work? And, all of these things, and get inside your head. But really the only way you're going to be able to figure anything out is just to start, and the work will teach you. It'll change, your idea will change, you'll learn things along the way, you'll you'll face like stumbling blocks and challenges, and you'll be like, oh my God, this is not going to work, and then you'll get over them. So really the best advice I have is just start and do it, and the rest will come.
Okay, well, actually, I just thought of another one. How long do you think it will take to restore a trillion trees?
Gosh, I wish I knew that. It really depends, because trees take time to mature. So, and different tree species have different, they have different amounts of years to mature. So some trees only take 7 years, some trees take 120 years. So it's really difficult to say. I wish I knew the answer to that question, but I really hope that we're able to do it in the next, it's really ambitious, but in the next 10 years, because with climate change, we really need to take some urgent action.
All right. Okay, so unless Maya, have you thought of another question?
It's not really like related to anything, but like, do you have any like pets, or have you had any pets in the past? Or sorry.
Yeah, so I love cats. I had 13 at one point, and I mean, when I was younger at school, and because I had so many, I wasn't allowed to have them in the house. But I'm really connected to all cats, by the way. I mean, if I was allowed to have other cats, I would have. But I also love lions. I would never keep a lion in captivity, but I love going to lion conservations and like safaris in Africa. I know those aren't technically pets, but I have lions, like pictures of lions all over my office here in my living room. So
All right. So thank you, Leena and Maya, for the great discussion and for all the things that we learned today. Thank you, Ubuntus, for listening to this interview. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can hear about upcoming sessions with other changemakers. Please also tell your friends about Oboot and share social media links with them. And last but not least, go to oboot.co to learn about opportunities to collect digital badges and help us draw down carbon. Thank you.
thank you.